All right, so welcome to a deep dive into Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Forget the typical Hollywood memoir. This is more like a playbook
Right.
based on McConaughey's wildlife,
Oh, yeah.
and we're going to be focusing on his early years,
Okay.
those experiences that shaped him, especially his relationship with his parents and their
Interesting.
unique outlook on success.
I like it.
It's a really interesting book.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating how McConaughey uses this idea of green lights.
Yeah.
Those moments of approval or serendipity that kind of keep you moving forward. He even relates them to like yellow and red lights,
Oh, wow.
challenges and pauses we all hit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And the book itself is drawn from decades of his diaries and journals.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's packed with stories, insights, even poetry.
Wow.
Trust me, you'll hear some surprising stuff about his life
Okay, I'm ready.
you wouldn't expect.
Lay it on me.
His childhood was definitely not ordinary.
I gathered that much, yeah.
His parents divorced twice, then remarried each other 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
You just imagine that family dynamic,
Wow, that's intense.
and it gets wilder.
Oh, really?
He describes this incident where his dad flipped the dining room table into the ceiling during an argument.
What?
Yeah.
During an argument?
During an argument.
Oh my goodness.
Talk about intense family dinners, right?
That's wild, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of environment definitely seems like it would foster a certain unconventional way of thinking.
Right. Definitely out of the box thinking, for sure.
He calls it outlaw logic, this philosophy of pushing boundaries and questioning the rules.
I like that.
His parents expected him to follow their rules,
Okay.
but they also encouraged him to find his own way.
Interesting.
Because it's a weird dichotomy.
Right.
You see this in the story about McConaughey as a kid entering a Little Mr. Texas contest,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and he was devastated about being runner-up. But his mom pointed to the trophy and said, "Look at you, winner. Little Mr. Texas, 1977.
Oh, that's funny.
It's pretty funny.
I like that.
So his mom was teaching him early on that success isn't always about traditional victories.
Yeah.
It's about finding the win in every situation,
Right. Reframing it.
reframing it.
Exactly.
But then there's this incident in the 7th grade where his mom encouraged him to enter a poetry contest
Okay.
with a piece he loved, even if it wasn't his own work.
Oh, no. Did he plagiarize?
Wait, so he plagiarized.
Oh, that's interesting.
That seems to contradict the whole follow your own path thing.
It does raise questions about
I'm
ethics.
sure.
But it also highlights this idea of finding what resonates with you and adapting it, even if it means bending the rules.
Right.
McConaughey's mom really believed in that.
It's definitely a gray area,
Yeah.
but it makes you think about where we draw the line between inspiration and simply copying.
Right. Where's that line?
So we've got this unconventional upbringing and outlaw logic at play. But McConaughey also went through some pretty intense experiences in his youth.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
He mentions being blackmailed as a teenager
Wow.
and witnessing violence,
That's heavy.
things that undoubtedly left a mark on him.
Yeah, definitely would.
It makes you wonder how those early challenges, coupled with his family's unique dynamic,
Uh-huh.
might have shaped his outlook on life
Yeah, that's a great point.
and, formed him into the man he is today.
Yeah, it's all part of his story, right?
Yeah.
It's all part of his story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. His relationship with his mother really shines through in the book.
Yeah, for sure.
She's described as the queen of relativity,
Okay.
always encouraging him to see things from multiple perspectives.
Right? Like that story about the Little Mr. Texas photo.
Exactly.
Even though he was runner-up, she always told him, "Look at you, winner."
Oh, yeah.
It's like she was rewiring his definition of success from a young age.
Absolutely. She wasn't diminishing his accomplishments.
Yeah.
She was expanding his understanding of what it means to achieve something.
And it ties back into that outlaw logic, doesn't it?
Totally.
Not just accepting what the world tells you is success, but finding your own version of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's about challenging conventional thinking, finding your own way, even if it means going against the grain.
But then we have that incident with the poetry contest,
Oh, right. Yeah.
where she encourages him to submit someone else's work.
Yeah.
How does that fit into the whole finding your own way thing?
It's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like it.
On one hand, she's pushing him to be original,
Right.
to forge his own path. But on the other hand, she's essentially condoning plagiarism.
It seems like she was more focused on the outcome,
Yeah.
on him winning than on the process of how he got there.
Yeah, perhaps. But maybe she also saw it as a way of him connecting with something that resonated deeply with him. even if it wasn't his own creation. It's like she was saying, find what moves you, what inspires you,
Right.
and make it your own.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how we absorb influences and how those shape our own creative expression
For sure.
and where we draw the line between inspiration and imitation.
Yeah, good point.
Speaking of influences, McConaughey's dad was a pretty big personality too, right?
Oh, from what McConaughey describes, his dad was a force of nature. He had this incredible energy, this passionate intensity that could be both inspiring and volatile.
Remember that story about him flipping the dining room table into the ceiling?
Oh, yeah, how could I forget?
That definitely speaks to the volatile side.
It's a pretty extreme example.
Yeah.
But it gives you a sense of the kind of environment McConaughey grew up in.
Right.
It wasn't always peaceful, but it was definitely never boring.
And it probably taught him how to navigate chaos,
Oh, for sure.
how to handle unexpected situations.
Absolutely. He learned to adapt, to think on his feet, to find a way to make things work even in the midst of turmoil.
So we have this outlaw logic coming from both parents, but manifested in very different ways.
Very different. Yeah, his mother encouraged him to challenge conventions,
Yeah.
to find his own definition of success.
Right.
His father, on the other hand, embodied this raw, untamed energy, this willingness to push boundaries, even if it meant breaking a few rules along the way.
It's interesting how those two seemingly contradictory influences come together to shape McConaughey's approach to life.
Totally. It's like he took the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
His mother's adaptability and his father's unwavering passion.
And he kind of combined them together.
Exactly. And he combined them to create this unique philosophy that guided him through his career and personal life.
So how did this play out in his actual career choices?
Yeah.
Because he's known for taking on unconventional roles, for pushing himself outside his comfort zone.
Exactly. He wasn't content with being pigeonholed as just a rom-com heartthrob.
Right.
He wanted to explore deeper, more complex characters.
Which is kind of ironic considering he initially wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
He even got accepted into law school, but then had a change of heart.
Really?
Yeah, he realized that his true passion lay in storytelling, in connecting with people on an emotional level.
Interesting.
And that led him to acting, but not in the traditional sense.
Right.
He wasn't afraid to take risks, to choose roles that challenged him, that pushed him to grow as an actor.
And that's where that outlaw logic really comes into play.
Okay, I see that.
He wasn't afraid to go against the grain, to make choices that defied expectations.
And it paid off. He went on to win an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, played a captivating anti-hero in True Detective.
Yeah.
He even did voice work in animated films like Sing.
Wow, what a range.
His career trajectory really embodies that idea of forging your own path, embracing the unconventional and defying expectations.
Absolutely.
It's like he took that outlaw logic and applied it to Hollywood,
Yeah,
proving that you can achieve success on your own terms.
I like that.
Speaking of defying expectations, McConaughey's writing style in Greenlight's already unconventional too.
In what way?
It's not your typical straightforward memoir.
So how would you describe it?
It's raw, honest, and incredibly personal.
Okay.
It feels like he's having a conversation with you, sharing his thoughts and experiences without any pretense or filter.
So it's very authentic.
Very authentic.
Right.
Yeah, he's not afraid to be vulnerable,
Okay.
to talk about his struggles, his doubts, his failures.
I can see that.
And that's what makes it so relatable.
Right.
He's not presenting himself as some sort of guru with all the answers.
Yeah.
He's just a guy figuring things out, sharing what he's learned along the way.
That makes it more accessible.
Definitely. And he does it with this great sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. He's funny.
He doesn't take himself too seriously, even when he's talking about serious topics.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, it's like he's inviting you to laugh along with him, to find the humor in the absurdity of life.
Yeah, I like that.
And he uses this metaphor of green lights to represent those moments of approval, success, and serendipity that propel us forward.
Right, those moments that keep us going.
But he also acknowledges the importance of the yellow lights.
Oh, yeah, the challenges and setbacks that force us to reevaluate and adjust our course.
Exactly.
Those are important, too.
And the red lights, those times when things come to a complete halt,
Right.
forcing us to stop and reflect.
Yeah.
His point is that all of these signals are essential to our growth,
Okay.
that even the setbacks and detours can ultimately lead us to where we're supposed to be.
It's all part of the journey.
It's about finding the meaning in the mess, the opportunity in the obstacle.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that message of resilience, of adaptability,
Yeah,
that really resonates with readers.
for sure.
He's not saying it's easy, but he's saying it's possible to find those green lights, even in the midst of chaos.
Absolutely.
Now, there's one story that really illustrates this idea of recognizing and seizing opportunities.
Okay, tell me more.
The story of how McConaughey landed his breakout role in A Time to Kill.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Ah, yes. The story of how he basically willed himself into that role.
Wasn't just luck. It was a combination of talent persistence and a bit of that outlaw logic at play.
So set the scene for us. What was going on in his life at the time?
Okay, so it was the early 90s, and McConaughey was a relatively unknown actor fresh out of film school.
Okay.
He had done a few commercials and small parts, but nothing major.
He was hungry for his big break, and A Time to Kill seemed like the perfect opportunity.
It was highly sought-after role.
Yeah.
Big-name actors were vying for the part.
So how did McConaughey, a virtual unknown at the time, manage to land it?
Well, he was determined to get an audition, that's for sure.
Okay.
He flew himself to Los Angeles and basically camped out in front of the casting director's office.
He didn't want to miss his chance.
Not at all. He just wanted to make sure she knew he was serious about the role.
Talk about making your own luck.
Yeah, seriously. And it worked.
Wow.
His persistence paid off, and the casting director finally agreed to give him an audition.
That's amazing.
But that was just the first hurdle. He
Right.
still had to nail the audition itself.
And he was up against some seasoned actors.
Exactly. So how did he stand out?
Good question.
Instead of going for the typical dramatic approach, he decided to tap into his Southern charm and laid-back persona.
I like that.
It was a risky move, but it paid off.
He went for it.
He did his authenticity shone through, and he landed the role.
And that role launched his career.
That one role changed everything.
It's a perfect example of catching a green light.
It really is.
It wasn't just luck. It was a combination of preparation talent and being in the right place at the right time.
And it speaks to that outlaw logic.
Yes.
Being willing to take risks, to go against the grain, to create your own opportunities.
So we've seen how this outlaw logic shaped his career choices, but how does it tie into his overall philosophy on life?
Yeah, that's a good question.
How does he apply this unconventional thinking to navigating the ups and downs that we all face? So we've seen how that outlaw logic played out, in his career.
Right.
But Green Lights is about way more than just Hollywood, right? It's
Yeah.
about how to handle life's ups and downs.
Right, those inevitable ups and downs.
And he frames it with this idea of getting relative with the inevitable.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
What exactly does that mean?
So McConaughey believes a lot of our suffering comes from fighting what we can't control.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
He argues that if we accept the inevitables of life, like the good and the bad,
Mm-hmm.
we actually free ourselves from unnecessary pain.
It's like surrendering to the flow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Recognizing we can't micromanage every outcome.
Instead of getting angry when things go wrong,
Yeah.
he suggests asking, okay, this happened now, what can I learn from it?
Oh, I like that.
It's about turning red lights into chances to grow.
So it's not passive acceptance, but active engagement with the rough patches.
Right, you got it.
But how does getting relative connect to finding those green lights he talks about?
By accepting what we can't change, McConaughey says we free up energy to focus on what matters.
Okay.
Those opportunities for fulfillment, those green lights.
So you can see them more clearly.
Exactly. It's like clearing the mental clutter so we can see them more clearly.
So instead of dwelling on what's not working, you shift your focus to what is working
Yes,
and what you do have.
precisely. He emphasizes cultivating an attitude of gratitude,
Okay.
appreciating the good even when things are tough.
Yeah.
And he sees humor as a key tool.
Which makes sense. He's got a great sense of humor even when he's writing about serious stuff.
It's like he's saying, life's wild, let's not forget to laugh along the way.
Right.
But ultimately, getting relative with the inevitable is about embracing the whole human experience.
Okay.
Good, bad, messy, and finding meaning in it all.
It's recognizing that life is a journey.
Right.
And the most important thing is to engage fully, keep moving forward, even when it's bumpy.
McConaughey's Green Lights is more than a memoir.
Yeah, it's not your average celebrity memoir.
It's a guide to navigating life infused with his wit and wisdom.
It makes you think differently, question your assumptions, and embrace the unpredictable nature of life.
He encourages us to recognize the green lights when they appear,
Yeah.
navigate the yellow lights with grace, and learn from the red lights that force us to pause and reflect.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener?
That's the big question.
McConaughey leads us with a question.
Okay, hit me.
If Green Lights is about getting relative with the inevitable,
Right.
does that mean simply accepting things we dislike? Or can we actively shift the balance of those green, yellow, and red lights in our lives?
That's the challenge he throws down.
That's a good
And
question.
maybe we can all find a few more green lights along the way.
Yeah, I like that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep chasing those green lights. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty intense. It's Matthew Perry's memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing.
Oh, wow.
And you know what's really cool about this? You can actually get the excerpt that we're going to be talking about for free.
Oh, nice.
We have the link down in the description, so make sure to check it out after you listen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this memoir, it's really raw.
Yeah.
It's honest,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to Perry's, struggles with addiction,
Right.
alongside, of course, him being this huge star on Friends.
Right.
I mean, we're going to be talking about a near-death experience,
Wow.
some surprising medical stuff, and even some cameos from some familiar faces.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You know, what really grabs me right from the start is
Yeah.
how Perry just throws you right into the deep end, like those opening lines.
Yeah.
He talks about being dead and this just unimaginable pain. It's day 7 of him not being able to have a bowel movement.
So,
And he finally realizes, like, something is seriously wrong.
yeah, he describes it as this. The worst pain you can imagine, like a coyote is ripping him apart from the inside.
Oh, my God.
And it's day 7 at this point. And he hasn't been able to, go to the bathroom for 10 days. That's got to be terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. And it really sets the stage for this, like, vulnerable journey that he takes us on. He doesn't shy away at all from, the darkness of his addiction.
Yeah.
He even compares it at one point to an internal war. He says, "My mind is out to kill me, and I know it."
Yeah.
It's like this part of him that wants to get better, but the addiction is the separate entity, battling for control.
Right. And it's so powerful because, I mean, this guy achieved what so many people would consider the ultimate success.
Oh, yeah.
Starring on Friends, dating Julia Roberts, buying a dream house.
Wow.
But even with all of that, the addiction didn't just disappear.
Right.
It makes you think,
Absolutely.
what does that tell us about addiction? And this whole idea that, happiness can just magically fix everything.
It definitely challenges that notion, I think Perry's honesty here is so crucial for breaking down the stigma around addiction. It shows that it can really affect anyone, regardless of external success.
Right.
And it's not about willpower.
Right.
It's a complex disease.
Yeah, yeah. And then things take a really scary turn, right?
Oh, yeah.
His colon explodes,
Oh, my.
and he's rushed to the hospital with a 2% chance of survival.
Wow.
Just processing that is heavy,
Yeah, the way he describes that night is just so intense. He's in excruciating pain. He tries an Epsom salt bath.
Right?
And finally, his assistant, Aaron, is like, "We got to go now."
Right.
But get this.
Yeah.
The staff at his sober living place actually tried to stop them
Yes.
because they thought that he was drug seeking.
No way.
They literally blocked the car.
Seriously.
Yeah. It's wild that Erin had the presence of mind to drive around them. She basically races through LA, calling ahead to the hospital, making sure they're ready for like a VIP arrival.
Wow.
And it's during that crazy drive that Perry starts fading in and out of consciousness.
Oh, wow.
He even describes seeing things that weren't there.
Oh, gosh.
It really highlights how severe his condition was, like how the pain and the potential sepsis were just affecting his mind.
Right. Imagine being in that much pain and confusion.
Oh, gosh.
Your mind is playing tricks on you.
Yeah,
It's not just physical. It's affecting his entire being.
absolutely. And then, boom, he's in surgery for 7 hours.
Wow.
The doctors tell his family and friends that he might not make it,
Oh, God.
that 2% chance of survival.
Can you imagine what his loved ones must have been going through? The uncertainty, the fear.
I know, it really speaks to the power of love and support, though,
Yeah.
They held vigils by his side, surrounded him with positive energy.
All right.
He even talks about sensing their presence while he was in a coma.
It's amazing that even in that state, human connection can be so powerful.
I know, it really is. And after 2 weeks, he wakes up.
Wow.
But then, when his mom tells him that his colon exploded, he rolls his eyes and goes back to sleep.
Oh, my God.
It's almost like humor is his coping mechanism
Right.
in the face of something so serious.
That's so Perry, right?
Totally.
Even in this, like, life or death situation,
Yeah.
he finds a way to make a joke.
Yeah.
But beneath that humor you can sense this vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's terrified that his addiction is what caused all of this.
Of course, yeah. And it takes weeks for his sister Maria to finally sit him down and
Wow.
explain everything that happened.
Oh, gosh.
Facing that reality, the consequences of his addiction
Right.
must have been incredibly difficult. He breaks down and admits
And,
that he almost killed himself.
and that raw honesty is something a lot of people who are struggling with addiction
Oh, absolutely.
can probably relate to.
Sure.
It's a reminder of the devastation it can cause.
Yeah. And what's remarkable is that even during this harrowing experience,
Yeah.
Perry finds these moments of levity.
Right.
He develops a crush on his therapist.
Wow.
He jokes about Batman.
That whole Batman thing was hilarious.
It was. And it's like he's using humor as a shield,
Right.
a way to cope with the trauma, the fear.
Right.
It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's still room for laughter.
Exactly. And that resilience is so inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
But recovery wasn't easy. He had to deal with a colostomy bag, a fistula that took doctors a month to find.
Wow.
And he couldn't eat or drink anything.
Oh, my
He
God.
talks about begging for a Diet Coke, having these dreams about being chased by this giant can of Sprite.
It's a small detail,
Right.
but it really drives home just the intense deprivation that he was feeling.
Yeah.
And it highlights the strength it took for him to get through that. Yeah. It's a long 5 months before he's finally released from the hospital.
Wow.
He ends this excerpt talking about the anticipation of another surgery to reverse the colostomy.
Right.
And just the knowledge that, everything inside him will eventually heal.
Right. And he recognizes the unwavering support that he received from his family and friends.
Oh, yeah.
He emphasizes that he was never alone, not for a single moment.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's such a powerful message about the importance of human connection.
It really is. It's a stark reminder that even celebrities, with all their fame and fortune, are still human.
Right.
They face incredibly real and raw challenges.
Yeah,
It really dismantles that illusion of perfection we often project onto them.
absolutely.
Mhm.
It's easy to forget that there are people who go through struggles and heartbreak, just like the rest of us.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Perry's willingness to be so open about his experience with addiction, it really helps to break down the stigma surrounding these issues.
It's so important.
Yeah.
He's not just telling a story. He's giving a voice to the often silent struggles of addiction and mental health.
Right.
And by doing so, he's offering this beacon of hope
Yeah.
to those who might be battling similar demons.
It's interesting how his writing is so vivid and engaging.
Yeah.
You really feel like you're right there with him and
Yeah.
experiencing the raw emotions, the physical pain, the moments of humor. It's
Absolutely.
powerful storytelling.
Yeah. What stands out to you the most?
Honestly, it's the stark contrast between his outward success and his internal turmoil. We tend to think that, success equals happiness,
Right.
but Perry's story shows that it's not that simple.
It's not. No, it makes you question
Yeah.
the traditional markers of success, for sure.
What do you think does his story challenge how we view success and fulfillment?
It definitely pushes us to look beyond those external achievements
Right.
and consider the importance of inner peace and well-being.
It's a moment in the excerpt where he talks about realizing the extent of his condition.
Yeah.
And he says, I had all but killed myself.
Yeah.
That's a heavy realization to carry.
It is, and it speaks to the profound power addiction can hold over someone's life.
Yeah.
But it also highlights the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. Facing those consequences head on, as Perry does, is crucial for the healing process.
He doesn't shy away from the less glamorous aspects of his recovery either.
Right.
Like having to wear a colostomy bag.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
Both physically and emotionally.
And let's be honest, most people don't even know what a fistula is.
Yeah.
It's this abnormal connection that forms between organs.
Right.
In this case, likely caused by the damage to his colon.
Oh, wow.
And the doctors took a month to even find it.
It's wild to think about what his body went through.
Yeah.
And he still manages to find humor in it all.
Right. He even jokes about developing a crush on his therapist.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's his way of coping with the trauma,
Yeah.
of finding light in the darkness.
It's like, even when faced with these incredibly serious circumstances,
Right.
that inherent Perry humor shines through.
Yeah, and it's inspiring, right?
Oh, yeah.
It shows the power of the human spirit to find resilience and even humor in the face of adversity.
Absolutely.
It makes his story all the more relatable and impactful.
I agree, yeah. What do you think it is about Perry's story that resonates so strongly with people?
I think it's his vulnerability.
Yeah,
He's not afraid to show his flaws, to admit his mistakes,
right.
and in doing so, he makes himself relatable to anyone who's ever struggled with anything,
Of course.
whether it's addiction, heartbreak, or just the everyday challenges of life.
And it's not just the vulnerability, it's the honesty with which he describes his experiences.
Right.
You can tell he's not holding anything back.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're getting a glimpse into his soul.
Absolutely.
And that rawness, that authenticity,
Yeah.
is what makes this memoir so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just a celebrity tell-all. It's a deeply personal and moving account of one man's journey through darkness and into the light.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
It's a story of resilience,
you're right.
of hope,
Yeah,
and ultimately of redemption.
yeah.
And it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always a chance for healing and a path back to the light.
It really makes you think about how we, define success and happiness,
It does. Perry's story kind of throws a wrench in this idea that fame and fortune automatically lead to fulfillment, right?
Right.
He had it all.
That's it.
The recognition, the money, the relationships, but he was still battling these inner demons.
It highlights that true happiness is like an inside job.
Yeah.
It's about finding peace and wholeness within yourself,
Right.
regardless of external circumstance.
Exactly. And it's not a one-time achievement either.
Right.
It's a constant process, a journey of self-discovery and healing.
His journey also underscores the importance of support systems.
He had his family, his friends, even his assistant Aaron, who quite literally saved his life.
Yeah,
It's a reminder that we don't have to go through tough times alone.
absolutely. Having people who believe in you,
Right.
who support you through thick and thin,
Yeah.
can make all the difference in the world, especially when dealing with something as challenging as addiction.
It makes me wonder if sharing his story, being so open about his struggles,
Yeah.
was like part of his own healing process.
I think it's highly likely. There's a sense of liberation that comes with, owning your truth,
Right.
with no longer hiding those parts of yourself that you might perceive as, flawed or broken.
Right.
And by sharing his story, he's not only helping himself heal,
Yeah.
but he's also potentially helping countless others who are struggling with similar issues.
It's a powerful testament to the idea that vulnerability can be a source of strength.
It really is, and it challenges us to rethink how we approach our own struggles.
Right.
What if, instead of hiding our imperfections,
Right. We embrace them as part of what makes us human.
what if we created spaces where it was safe to be vulnerable, to ask for help,
Right.
to share our stories without fear of judgment?
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it?
It is.
A world where we celebrate our shared humanity, where vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
So for anyone listening who's feeling lost, alone, or is struggling with their own demons,
Yeah.
remember Perry's story. Remember that you're not alone,
Right.
and there is hope.
And remember that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's a
Yeah.
sign of strength.
Right.
It takes courage to be open and honest about your struggles. And in doing so,
Yeah.
you open yourself up to the possibility of healing, connection, and growth.
If this deep dive resonated with you, I
Yeah.
highly recommend checking out the full memoir.
Absolutely.
We have a link to the free excerpt in the description. It's a read that will stay with you long after you finish it.
As you delve deeper into Perry's story, ask yourself, how does it challenge your own perceptions of success, happiness, and the human experience?
That's something we can all ponder.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was great to be here.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming. Hey, everyone, and welcome to a deep dive that, it's going to take us to Alaska in the 1970s.
Okay.
We're diving into The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna for this one.
Oh, very cool.
A novel that explores themes of survival and resilience and the kind of complicated family relationships that can really make you think,
Yeah.
And the best part is you can follow along with us for free.
Really?
Yeah, we've got links to the ebook in the description. So,
Oh, that's fantastic. I always love that.
yeah.
So what really strikes me about this book is how it uses the setting, Alaska in the 70s, as more than just a backdrop.
Right.
It's a time when people were drawn to this vast, untamed land for a fresh start, maybe even an escape.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also a place that could chew you up and spit you out if you weren't ready for it.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like Alaska itself is a character in the story,
Right.
shaping the lives of everyone who dares to call it home.
Yeah.
So we've got this 13-year-old girl, Leanie Albright, plucked from her life in Seattle and dropped into this remote homestead with her parents, Ernst and Cora. And their family dynamic,
Yeah.
let's just say it's a powder keg.
You've got Ernst, a Vietnam War vet battling PTSD,
Right.
who swings between charismatic and terrifyingly unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Cora, his wife, who's described as this incredibly strong yet fragile woman holding on to a love for Ernst that seems to defy all logic.
It makes you wonder about the limits of love and loyalty, especially when survival is on the line.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, they're facing the challenges of the Alaskan bush.
Right.
Isolation, brutal weather, the constant need to prepare for winter.
Oh, yeah.
Hannah really throws you into that world with vivid descriptions of everything from the breathtaking beauty of orcas and glaciers to the chilling darkness of winter and the ever-present danger of bears.
It's not just about surviving the elements, though. It's about surviving within your own family unit.
Yeah.
And in the Albrights' case, that becomes just as dangerous, if not more so, than anything the wilderness throws at them.
Okay, so imagine trying to build a life in this harsh landscape. You're relying on hunting, fishing, gardening, everything you need to be self-sufficient.
Wow.
You're miles from any real town, so your neighbors become your lifeline.
And that sense of community is both a blessing and a curse. You rely on each other for support, for sharing resources, for just plain human connection.
Right.
But there's also this undercurrent of tension, a constant awareness of the fine line between helping and meddling.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly.
And then you throw in Lenny's relationship with Matthew Walker,
Yeah.
whose family represents a more settled, even prosperous side of Alaskan life. Their friendship becomes this flashpoint, especially with Ernst.
That's where the social dynamics of the Alaskan bush get really interesting. You have these different layers of experience, those who've carved out a hard-won existence and those who arrive with more resources, maybe even a sense of entitlement.
Right.
It creates friction, especially when it comes to someone like Ernst, who already feels like the world is against him.
And in the middle of all this is Lainey trying to figure out who she is in this wild, unpredictable world.
Yeah.
You see her slowly transforming from this somewhat naive teenager into a strong, resourceful young woman.
Right.
But it's not without its costs.
What's striking about Lainey's coming-of-age story is how it's intertwined with her father's descent into darkness.
Yeah.
Ernst's PTSD isn't just a background detail. It becomes this oppressive force that hangs over the entire family, pushing them all toward a breaking point.
Absolutely. There's this one scene where Ernst gives Lainey a bag of clothes he salvaged from the dump, and she and Cora are horrified.
Oh, wow.
It's a stark reminder that what's considered treasure in their new life is a symbol of poverty and shame in the world they left behind.
That moment really highlights the clash between their old life and their new reality. It's not just about material possessions. It's about how their sense of identity is being reshaped by this harsh environment.
Yeah.
And for Lainey, it's a turning point where she starts to understand the true cost of survival in the Alaskan wilderness.
And it's not just the external challenges they face, right?
Oh.
It's the fear within their own home.
Yeah,
The feeling that Ernst could erupt at any moment.
exactly.
You can feel the tension building chapter by chapter.
The way Hannah describes the isolation and darkness of the Alaskan winter really amplifies that sense of dread.
Right.
It's almost like the environment itself is closing in on them, mirroring Ernst's increasingly unstable mental state.
Yeah.
You get this feeling that something terrible is about to happen.
And then it does on Christmas Eve. Ernst crosses a line. He attacks Cora, leaving her badly injured.
Oh, no.
It's a terrifying moment that forces Lainey and Cora to make a life-altering decision they have to escape.
Their flight from Ernst becomes this desperate fight for survival.
Right.
They crash their VW bus in a blizzard, and Lainey has to make a harrowing trek through the snow to get help.
Wow.
It's a testament to her strength and resilience, but it also shows the desperation of their situation.
It's a real edge-of-your-seat moment. You're rooting for them to survive, but you also know the odds are stacked against them.
And even when they find refuge at the Walker's house, the danger isn't over.
No.
Ernst tracks them down, leading to a confrontation that exposes him as a threat, not only to his family, but to the entire community.
Oh, wow.
It's a moment where the lines between individual survival and the need to protect others become incredibly blurred.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How far would you go to protect yourself and the people you love, especially in a place as unforgiving as the Alaskan wilderness?
That's a question that lingers long after you finish the book. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just a story about survival, but a story about The choices we make when faced with impossible odds,
Right.
and the consequences that ripple outward long after the immediate danger has passed.
We're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to unpack. But I think it's safe to say that The Great Alone isn't just a thrilling adventure story. It's a powerful exploration of the human spirit, both its resilience and its capacity for darkness.
Absolutely.
And trust me, you'll want to stay tuned because things are about to get even more intense.
Oh, I can't wait. It's interesting how The Great Alone forces you to confront this idea that sometimes the greatest threats aren't the external ones, like, the bears, the blizzards, the
Right.
isolation.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that you share a home with.
You're so right, and that tension just keeps ratcheting up as the story unfolds. Remember that scene where Linny is out hauling water in the pitch black and she sees a pair of yellow eyes staring at her from the darkness?
Chilling,
Like
right?
that.
It turns out to be nothing but that constant fear, that feeling of being watched. It really gets under your skin.
Yeah.
It speaks to the psychological toll that living in such an unforgiving environment can take, especially when combined with the threat of Ernst's unpredictable violence.
It's like every shadow holds a potential danger, both real and imagined. And for Lenny, that feeling of being trapped, of having nowhere to turn, is as much a part of her reality as the physical challenges of the Alaskan wilderness.
And then there's the community, this tight-knit group of people who are both a source of support and a potential source of judgment. Think about this larger-than-life character who becomes a kind of surrogate mother to Lenny.
Right.
She's tough, resourceful, and fiercely protective, but she also represents the traditional values of the Alaskan bush.
It's like she embodies the duality of that world, right?
Yeah.
The warmth and generosity of the community, but also the unspoken rules and expectations that can feel suffocating, especially for someone like Lenny, who's trying to find her own way.
Exactly, and that tension really comes to a head when Lenny and Cora are forced to seek refuge at the Walker's house.
Yeah.
It's a turning point where the private struggles of the Albright family spill out into the wider community, forcing everyone to take sides.
It's interesting how the novel explores that dynamic, the way secrets and rumors can spread like wildfire in a small town, especially when they involve something as taboo as domestic abuse.
Right.
It makes you wonder how much people really knew about what was happening behind closed doors at the Albright homestead.
Right, and it raises questions about the limits of community support. How far are you willing to go to help someone who's being hurt by their own family? And what happens when those actions have unintended consequences?
Because let's face it, the community's intervention doesn't exactly go smoothly. Ernst doesn't just go away quietly. He escalates, becoming even more paranoid and violent, and it ultimately leads to a tragedy that shakes the entire town.
That's where the novel really digs into the moral complexities of the situation. There are no easy answers, no clear-cut heroes or villains. Everyone is making choices based on what they believe is right, but those choices have ripple effects that are impossible to predict.
And for Leni, that tragedy marks the beginning of a long and painful journey of healing. She's forced to confront the trauma of her past, the guilt she carries, and the uncertain future that lies ahead.
It's a testament to her resilience that she's able to move forward at all. She leaves Alaska, goes to college, pursues her passion for photography, and eventually becomes a mother herself, but the past is never truly behind her.
It's like a shadow that follows her wherever she goes, and it raises the question, can you ever truly escape the places that have shaped you, even if those places hold painful memories?
That theme of home is so central to The Great Alone. For Leni, Alaska represents both love and loss, beauty and pain. It's the place where she experienced the most intense moments of her life, both good and bad, and it's a place she can't seem to stay away from even when she tries.
So when Leni decides to return to Alaska with her son, MJ, it's more than just a visit. It's a reckoning with her past, a search for answers, and maybe even a chance to find some kind of closure.
And it's through this journey back to the Alaskan wilderness that Leni begins to understand the true meaning of survival. It's not just about enduring hardship, but about finding the strength to heal, to forgive, and to ultimately reclaim the parts of herself that were lost along the way.
It's a powerful message, isn't it? That even after experiencing unimaginable trauma, it's possible to find peace, acceptance, and even a sense of hope. But the journey isn't over yet. There are still loose ends to tie up, relationships to navigate, and a whole lot of emotional baggage to unpack.
And the stakes are even higher now because Leni isn't just fighting for her own survival anymore, she's fighting for her son's future. And that adds a whole new layer of complexity to the story.
We're about to dive into the final part of Leanie's journey, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. It's full of twists and turns, emotional confrontations, and ultimately a resolution that will leave you pondering the true meaning of forgiveness and redemption. So we left off with Leanie returning to Alaska, bringing her son MJ to the place that still holds so much power over her.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's trying to make peace with the ghosts of her past.
Right.
But there are some things you just can't outrun.
Especially in a place like the Alaskan bush where secrets have a way of clinging to the landscape, and Leanie's been carrying a heavy one.
Yeah.
The truth about her father,
Right.
about what happened that night in the blizzard, about the choices she and her mother were forced to make.
It's not just her burden to bear, though. Remember, Cora confessed to Large Marge, and in a small community like that, word travels fast.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So when Leanie returns, she's not just facing her own demons, she's facing the judgment of the entire town.
It's interesting how the novel explores that theme of community forgiveness or lack thereof.
Right.
These are people who've relied on each other for survival, who've shared hardships and celebrations, who've built a life together in this unforgiving wilderness.
Yeah.
And yet there are lines that even they are hesitant to cross.
It's like a test of their values, right?
Yeah.
What happens when the person who needs forgiveness is one of their own?
Right.
Can they reconcile the past with the present, or will the scars of that shared trauma remain forever?
And for Lenny, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
On one hand, she craves that sense of belonging, that acceptance from the people who were once like family to her.
Right.
But on the other hand, she's fiercely protective of her son. And she doesn't want him exposed to the whispers, the judgments, the shadows of her past.
It's a tough position to be in.
Yeah.
And it becomes even more complicated when she reconnects with Matthew, who's been living a quiet life in a rehab facility, still dealing with the physical and emotional fallout of the accident that changed everything.
Their reunion is so poignant, there's still a spark between them, a shared history that binds them together.
Right.
But so much has happened, so much time has passed.
Yeah.
They're both different people now, shaped by the experiences that have both separated them and in a way brought them full circle.
And then there's MJ,
Right.
who has no idea about the connection between his mother and Matthew, about the role Matthew might have played in his very existence.
It raises a whole new set of ethical questions, doesn't it? How much of the past should Leanie reveal to her son? At what point does protecting him become a form of deception? And what about Matthew's right to know the truth, to have a relationship with his son, however unconventional it might be?
These are the kinds of dilemmas that The Great Alone throws at you. And there are no easy answers. But what strikes me is how Leanie navigates these complexities.
Yeah.
She's no longer the scared teenager who was at the mercy of her father's rage. She's a mother, now a woman who's been through hell and back, and she's determined to create a better life for her son, even if it means confronting painful truths.
And that confrontation takes a dramatic turn when she finally goes to see her father at the abandoned homestead. He's completely lost in his own paranoia, armed and dangerous, and Leanie has to use all her survival skills to protect herself and her mother.
Talk about a heart-stopping moment.
Yeah.
It's like all the tension that's been building throughout the novel explodes in that scene, and it forces Leanie to make a choice. Will she succumb to the cycle of violence that has defined her family, or will she finally break free?
It's a powerful moment of reckoning, and in a way, it's also a moment of liberation.
Right.
By standing up to her father, by refusing to be a victim any longer, Leanie reclaims her agency, her strength, her right to define her own life.
But that liberation comes at a cost. Leanie and Cor are forced to flee Alaska, once again leaving behind everything they've built. It's a bittersweet ending filled with both loss and the promise of a new beginning.
And it's a reminder that sometimes survival means leaving behind the places and people that hold us captive, even if those places are also a part of who we are.
The Great Alone takes you on an emotional roller coaster. It's a story about the complexities of family, the resilience of the human spirit, the power of forgiveness, and the enduring beauty of the Alaskan wilderness.
It's also a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it. It makes you think about the choices we make, the consequences we face, and the lengths we'll go to for the people we love. And it leaves you with a sense of hope that even in the darkest of times, even after the worst mistakes, there's always a chance for redemption, for healing, for finding our way back to the light.
And that is what makes this deep dive so powerful. It's not just about escaping into a good book. It's about confronting the big questions, the ones that make us grapple with what it means to be human, to love, to lose, to survive. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out The Great Alone. It's a journey worth taking. And as always, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a brand new thriller today, The Inmate by Frida McFadden. And the best part, You can snag a free copy using the link in the description. So we're meeting Brooke today. She's a single mom navigating a new town, a new job at a maximum security prison, and oh yeah, her high school ex just happens to be an inmate. Talk about a recipe for suspense.
You're telling me McFadden throws us right into the thick of it, doesn't she? Right from the start, we feel this oppressive atmosphere, with Brooke surrounded by those imposing prison walls. It's almost like she's trapped, not just by the job, but by, everything in her life.
Yeah, absolutely. That sense of being trapped is so palpable. And then you've got Josh, her son, trying to adjust to a new school, new town, all the anxiety that come with that. It's a lot for Brooke to handle.
And then, bam, we get hit with the bombshell. Shane Nelson, her ex from high school, is an inmate at the prison.
Awkward reunion alert. Seriously, what's McFadden doing here? Is it purely for suspense, or is there something more to it?
I think it's a clever mix of both. I mean, on the surface, it's a fantastic way to ratchet up the tension, instant danger, this constant reminder of Brooke's past. But it also goes deeper. It lets McFadden explore themes of guilt, forgiveness, that lingering shadow of trauma. Brooke is clearly haunted by her history with Shane, and seeing him again, well, it forces her to face all those unresolved feelings, all those buried secrets.
Which makes her decision to take this job all the more perplexing, right?
Yeah.
Who in their right mind would choose to work in a maximum security prison, especially with their, let's say, complicated ex locked up inside? It seems almost self-destructive.
You hit the nail on the head. And that's what makes Brooke so compelling. She's not this fearless, perfect heroine. She's flawed. She's desperate. She's making choices that maybe aren't the best, but they're the only ones she sees. It makes her so relatable, even when you question her actions.
So we've got this complex character, this pressure cooker setting, and then McFadden adds another layer of the family drama. Brooke's relationship with her deceased parents is, well, strained is putting it mildly. It's like their disapproval still hangs over her, even from the grave.
It's such a powerful element, isn't it? This lingering parental disapproval. It adds so much depth to Brooke's internal struggles. They judged her, disapproved of Shane. Even though they're gone, she's still trying to earn their validation, break free from their expectations. It's something so many people can relate to, right? That struggle to live up to what our parents wanted, even when those expectations are unrealistic or, maybe even hurtful.
Then we have Tim, Brooke's childhood best friend. The seemingly perfect guy next door. Supportive, helps out with Josh, and honestly, there's a definite spark between him and Brooke.
Right. Tim's presence is so interesting. He's like this breath of fresh air, a symbol of stability and normalcy. Such a stark contrast to the chaos of the prison and the darkness of Brooke's past. It's like McFadden is offering her a glimmer of hope, a chance for a normal life, but then she pulls the rug out from under us.
And that's where things take a huge turn. We're thrown back 11 years to a pivotal night, a high school party at Shane's house, a drinking game gone wrong, and a classmate ends up dead. Talk about a bomb dropping on the story. It shatters any sense of stability we might have had and makes us question everything.
And the way McFadden reveals the details of that night is brilliant. We see it all through Brooke's fragmented memories, clouded by alcohol and suppressed trauma. The uncertainty, the shifting blame, the feeling that anyone could be the killer. It's pure dread and keeps you guessing every step of the way.
Absolutely. Keeps you on the edge of your seat, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk suspects. Do you think McFadden is deliberately throwing us off with red herrings, or are there actual clues pointing to the real killer?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I think it's a mix of both. She's a master of misdirection, that's for sure. She wants us guessing. But she also drops these subtle hints, inconsistencies in what people say, little details that make you stop and rethink things. It's like a puzzle box. And we're trying to piece together the truth right alongside Brooke. And just when you think Brooke is starting to piece things together from that night, we get another twist. Turns out Tim, good guy Tim, wasn't just a witness at that high school party. He was actually convicted of the murder.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold up a sec. Tim, the stable one. Convicted of murder. This changes things, doesn't it? It's like McFadden's messing with our heads, making us question who we should trust.
Exactly. And to make things even more complicated, he was later exonerated. New evidence came to light, pointing the finger at Shane. So now you have two potential suspects, both with a history of violence, both tied to Brooke in a deeply personal way.
Okay, so Tim, wrongly accused in the past, and Shane, currently doing time for the same crime. So a weird parallel, isn't it? Do you think McFadden is suggesting a connection between these two cases?
I think it's definitely something she wants us to consider. Is it just a coincidence that both of these guys were implicated in the same murder? Or is there something more going on, some hidden link we haven't uncovered yet? This is where McFadden's thriller skills really shine. She throws in these seemingly unrelated details, these little breadcrumbs that make you question everything.
It's like we're caught in this web she's weaving, trying to figure it all out. But let's not forget Brooke, right? She's dealing with all of this while trying to juggle a job and be a single mom. That's a lot of pressure.
Oh, absolutely. And it's in those quieter moments, those everyday scenes, that McFadden's writing really hits home. We see Brooke struggling to balance it all, fighting her own fears and anxieties, trying to shield her son from the truth. It reminds us that even in the middle of all this chaos and suspense, there's a very human story at the heart of it all.
Then, just when you think things might be calming down a bit for Brooke, she stumbles upon a chilling discovery in Tim's basement. McFadden just doesn't let up, does she? Always throwing in these shocking twists that keep you hooked.
Finding Kelly Underwood's body in Tim's basement is a major turning point in the story. It shatters that sense of safety and normalcy that Tim represented. Brooke's forced to face the possibility that maybe she was wrong about him all along.
Okay, so Tim, the seemingly perfect guy next door, is now the prime suspect in another murder. And Shane, the convicted killer, well, he's suddenly not looking so guilty anymore. It's like McFadden's flipping the script. Where do we go from here?
Well, this is where it gets really crazy. Just when you think it can't get any more twisted, Shane gets released from prison.
Wait, what? How is that even possible? Didn't he confess to the high school murder?
It's a bit of a mystery at first, but we soon find out that his mother, Pamela Nelson, has been working behind the scenes, pulling strings to get him out. New evidence, expensive lawyers, she's gone all out.
Okay, so Pamela Nelson is a character we need to talk about. She's a force of nature, right? Fiercely protective of her son, willing to bend or even break the rules to get what she wants. What do you think her motivations are? Is it just maternal love, or is there something darker going on?
That's a question that hangs over the whole story. On the surface, it seems like a mother's unwavering devotion. But as we get deeper into the story, we start to see a more complex, maybe even disturbing side to her. There's a hint of obsession, a ruthlessness to her actions that makes you wonder how far she's willing to go.
So Shane's back, thanks to his manipulative mother. Brooke is now face to face with her past, forced to protect her son from the truth about his father. The stakes have just gone way up.
Absolutely. And the tension just keeps building. Brooke starts spending more time with Shane, helping him fix up his old farmhouse, trying to figure out what really happened that night 11 years ago. And all the while, she's wrestling with all these conflicting emotions, guilt, fear, maybe a little bit of that old attraction, and that constant worry about what will happen if Josh finds out who his father really is.
Talk about a recipe for disaster. Putting Shane in close proximity to Josh, even if it's just as a friend. Does Josh suspect anything?
Thankfully, no. Josh just sees Shane as this cool older guy who teaches him baseball, gives him advice, a much-needed male figure in his life. It's actually kind of sweet to see them together, but it adds this whole other layer of anxiety for the reader. You know the truth about Shane, you know the danger he could pose, and you're just waiting for something to happen.
Like a ticking time bomb, right? And then there's Tim, watching all this unfold between Brooke and Shane. Clearly suspicious, maybe even a little jealous. But he's also the main suspect in Kelly's murder, so he can't exactly intervene without drawing attention to himself.
Yeah, Tim's in a tough spot. He knows something's off with Shane, but he can't act on it without incriminating himself. And then there's the question of why he was framed for the high school murder in the first place. Was it just random? Or is there a deeper connection between Tim and Shane that we haven't figured out yet?
So many tangled relationships, secrets, and lies. Brooke is right in the middle of it all, trying to protect her son, uncover the truth, and just survive this emotional roller coaster McFadden has created. It's one of those books that stays with you long after you finish it.
It really is. It gets under your skin, makes you question your own ideas about truth and justice. And the best part is, we're not done yet. There are still so many twists and turns ahead. Trust me, you won't see the ending coming.
Okay, so we left off with Brooke in a really impossible situation. Shane's out of prison, Tim's looking like the bad guy, and Brooke's caught in this web of secrets going back years. Where does McFadden take us next?
This is where the story gets really dark. Brooke, desperate for answers, confronts Pamela Nelson. She wants to warn her about Shane, protect Josh, but things don't exactly go to plan.
She goes head-to-head with the woman who got Shane out of prison. Wow, that takes some serious courage. So what happens? Does Pamela believe her?
Not at all. In fact, Pamela drops a bombshell. She confesses to killing Chelsea at the farmhouse all those years ago.
Wait a minute, Pamela was the killer the whole time, but why? What was her motive? And what about Tim? Was he really involved or was he just set up?
It's a revenge thing, a twisted kind of revenge. Pamela reveals this deep-seated grudge against Brooke's family, stemming from a past romance with Brooke's father. She blames them for the life she never had and saw the murders as a way to punish Brooke. It's a chilling realization. It shows just how far her resentment goes. As for Tim, it turns out he was framed from the very beginning. Pamela and Shane manipulated everything, planting evidence to make him look guilty of Tracy Gifford's murder. They knew he was connected to Tracy, so he was an easy target, and it kept suspicion off them.
This is just messed up. So Tim was innocent all along, and Pamela and Shane are the masterminds behind this whole twisted plan. But what about Kelly Underwood? Was Pamela involved in that too?
Yes, Pamela admits to killing Kelly as well. She needed to get Shane out of prison, and framing Tim was the only way to do it. It's cold, calculated, and it shows she's willing to do anything, even sacrifice an innocent life to protect her son.
This is insane. Brick is trapped with a self-confessed murderer, a woman who's been lying and manipulating people for years. What happens next?
Everything spirals out of control. Pamela realizes Brooke knows the truth, and she pulls out a gun to silence her for good. Brooke, in a moment of desperation, lunges for the gun and it goes off. It's a struggle, chaotic, but Brooke manages to overpower Pamela and escape into the woods. She's injured, terrified, but determined to find Josh.
It's like something out of a nightmare. Alone, hurt, with a gun she doesn't know how to use. Does she find Josh? And what about Shane? Where is he in all of this?
Eventually, Brooke finds Josh, thankfully safe. He tells her Shane's been hurt, needs help. Still reeling from everything Pamela told her, unsure who to trust, Brooke follows Josh to where Shane is lying injured in the snow. He fell through the ice on a frozen pond, barely conscious, calling out for help.
It's heartbreaking. Despite everything that's happened, Brooke wants to help. But can she really trust him? All the manipulation, the murders, the lies, it feels like a trap.
This is the ultimate test for Brooke. Can she forgive Shane? Can she risk her own safety and Josh's to help the man who's caused so much pain? Her decision is both heartbreaking and incredibly powerful.
So what does she do? Does she just leave him there?
She makes it the agonizing choice to leave Shane behind. She takes Josh and runs, knowing they have to get as far away as possible. It's a gut-wrenching decision, but it's about survival. She chooses her son, chooses herself, and finally breaks free from the cycle of manipulation that's controlled her life for so long.
That has got to be one of the hardest decisions anyone could ever make. To walk away from someone who's hurt, even if they deserve it. What happens to Shane? Does he make it?
The ending is open to interpretation. We don't know for sure if Shane lives or dies, but McFadden makes it pretty clear that he probably succumbs to his injuries. Brooke and Josh escape, but they'll always carry the scars of what they've been through. It's a reminder that even when justice is served, the past can still haunt us.
This deep dive has been intense. We started with a woman looking for a fresh start and ended up in this whirlwind of secrets and murder. What's the takeaway here? What can we learn from Brooke's story?
I think it emphasizes the importance of trusting our gut, seeing those red flags in relationships, and finding the strength to walk away from unhealthy patterns. Brooke spent years doubting herself, and it almost cost her everything. Her journey reminds us that we have the power to choose our own path, define our own truth, and protect ourselves and the people we love.
That's such a powerful message. So after all this, do you think Brooke can move on, find peace?
McFadden leaves that for us to consider. The ending is open, allowing us to imagine Brooke and Josh rebuilding their lives, finding healing, maybe even happiness. It shows the resilience of the human spirit, our ability to grow, and the power of hope, even after experiencing such trauma.
Wow, what a story. If you're looking for a thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat, The Inmate is it. And don't forget, you can get a free copy using the link in the episode description. Until next time, stay curious, keep reading, and remember, sometimes the most captivating stories are the ones that make us confront the darkest parts of ourselves.